Hello everyone, today I am at Bishopwearmouth Cemetery. Thankfully it's a little bit colder than it was yesterday. I've just come to tell the story about probably history of one particular headstone. It's one of my favourite in the whole of Bishopwearmouth Cemetery because I think it's quite there's lots of aspects to it and it's in absolutely gorgeous condition. Just to give you an idea where we are, we're just next to the old nonconformist chapel in the centre of Bishopwearmouth. The Religious Society of Friends of the Quaker section is just a few feet away. So we're right next to one of the roads through. You've probably driven past it many a time. It's actually in brilliant condition, the lettering. It looks normally much better than this, but there's a bit of moss has sort of grown on the bottom, as you can see there. You probably just sponge that off, but I'll read it out. So this is sacred to the memory of Joseph Symm. And now we've got Esquire. He was the beloved husband of Amelia Symm. Now, this was his second wife. Her maiden name was Hoskins. And he was for many years a merchant in the city of London. It was actually close to King's Cross, where he had his particular dealership. And he departed this life on 3rd of May 1858, aged 65 years. Now this particular area, I believe, is the nonconformist section. Well, it's one of the old ones where in Bishopwearmouth Cemetery. So this would be like where Presbyterians or different types of Methodists would be buried. And as I mentioned before, first buried at this place was the 2nd of May 1856. So it'd only been a couple of years open when Joseph was buried here. I read his epitaph, and it is: calm on the bosom of thy God, dear spirit, rest thee now, no worldly foes for sordid dross, no more disturbs thy sweet repose, all thy sorrows left here below, and earth exchanged for heaven. So Joseph Symm was actually born up in Allendale around, I think it was 1792, 1793 era. So he's obviously made his way down to London. He has a well-known brother in Oxford. His brother was called Joshua Symm. Again, he made his way down from Northumberland, and he was a stonemason, and most of the 19th century college buildings in Oxford were created at his hands along with another colleague. So there's actually a blue plaque in St Giles for this gentleman's brother, Joshua Symm. So if you've been to Oxford, you've probably seen lots of his particular buildings. I think I went once about 40 odd years ago. So I'd always wondered why Joseph ended up in Bishopwearmouth as it was. He actually died in Waterloo Place in the centre of the city centre. You know where Hot Rats Records is? There's a plug for you, Marty. That's Waterloo Place. It doesn't look like as much you'd think it would be somewhere who's retired, wealthy, lots of money, would want to live. But in the mid-1850s, it was actually a lot more like a cul-de-sac and a close than a thoroughfare in the centre of Bishopwearmouth. So it would have been a desirable place to live. So he can't have lived here long. So he must have only retired a couple of years before this date. So he came here. He passed away at that property in Waterloo Place. I don't actually know which one, whether it was on the side which is next to the railway line or the side where Hot Rats is. Obviously it looks a lot different than it does now. It just says he died at Waterloo Place. So Esquire means he was sort of a gentleman for that. Now, after he passed away, Amelia, who, as I said, was his second wife, because his first wife died in 1847 up at Hustonworth, sort of north end of County Durham, past Rook, up sort of on the way to Allendale. So she headed to London, and she lived at a place called Oakley Square in Camden Town. So obviously she'd had a lot of wealth inherited from her husband, and there she lived with like a housekeeper called Mrs. Hill. There was a rabid dog, which attacked people who ever visited this house. And she had a brother who was described as an imbecile who made as much sense as, I think it was a doorpost, something along those lines. Now, Amelia was a heavy alcoholic. It was suspected that she had delirium, I think it's tremens, is it, something like that? And she'd even offered somebody £200 to go and get her a glass of sherry. So it was I did a story on Facebook, it's called The Menage, about this particular household and Joseph. So basically she was off a rocker at that time. So the four of them lived in this house. If anybody came to visit, the dog would attack them. This brother who was apparently full of sauciness, which basically meant he was ravenous for the opposite sex who came into this particular house. So doctors were called and they tried to treat her, but Amelia didn't take kindly to this and started a court case against these two particular doctors. It was a famous trial, I think it was in 1863, and it was called the lunacy trial. Made all the national, well, there wasn't that many national papers then, it was all sort of regional really. So it was syndicated across the UK, reported in detail. The jury didn't take long to throw the case out and find the doctors guilty. She'd claimed that they'd kidnapped her, held her under hostage and so on, but literally she was delusional at this point, and all they'd done is try to take care of her. That wasn't the end of the story. In 1867 she was living in fashionable Bayswater, and that's where she died in 1867. Now, on her deathbed, a gentleman had got her to change her will and leave most of it to himself. So again, this went to trial and the will was thrown out because this guy had been a bit of a swindler and had it all changed over to himself. So Amelia, the name of Amelia Symm, would have appeared quite often in the newspapers in the 1860s. God knows how much of that, the drink problem, was down to the loss of a husband. We'll never know. So that's just one headstone with lots of history. Yes, I could do with a little clean actually. That one, there you are. So from Allendale to King's Cross and all the way back up north to Bishopwearmouth. So I'll leave you there. That is sacred to the memory of Joseph Symm Esquire. So thank you very much for watching that video. If you did like it, please give it a like, and you can also click on subscribe to help grow the channel. If you do want to read the full story of this, it's all written up with pictures and so on. It's on Facebook in Sunderland History, Friends of Sunderland Cemeteries, and Sunderland History and Memories, and it's called The Menage, which is like a French word for household, which basically it's about what was going on in that particular household and bits and pieces. So thank you very much for watching. See you later.